So, the hosts of the show will be bringing me a cup of coffee shortly. I asked if they had cream for the coffee, because that's my preferred way of drinking coffee in this age, this time. And they suggested we have a very light cream. It's called milk. So I'll take that. It's always a challenge as to what to talk about. So I thought I would attempt, as memory might serve, to talk about growing up in Fullerton. And there's actually a Facebook page by the same name, Growing Up in Fullerton. And when you go on that page, it's interesting because I recognize some of the people from either grade school or junior high or high school or elsewhere. And they talk about their favorite stories. They talk about their favorite pizza growing up. They talk about the one and only Chinese food restaurant in Fullerton, Chan Hao Kitchens, 2 number 1s, please, is what we would typically order. But I'm going to recall, again, best I can, growing up on the street I grew up on, in my earliest memory, and then moving forward. My earliest memory was, I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and my mom walked me out to the front porch as my dad was leaving for work, and his powder blue 1949 Ford almost disappeared into very dense fog as he backed out of the driveway. And I was reminded, and I can remember it, and then I was reminded of it later in life. And I made the remark, it's very froggy out there. Not foggy, froggy. Very froggy out there. And of course my mother thought that was just the cutest thing she'd ever heard. It's froggy. But we would get sometimes a very dense coastal fog, and if you had to drive through some of the lower lying areas, like there was an area of Brea Canyon Road before the 57 freeway was built, and it would twist and turn and wind, and it was a deep canyon, and the fog from the coast would settle in to that canyon, and it made it a challenge to drive. The other area that was subject to dense fog was the area between the city of Orange or Santa Ana and Costa Mesa, and the fog from the coast would settle in there, and I hit that a couple of times when I used to work in Newport Beach and driving back to Pasadena, and I would hit that at night now and then. But anyway, the whole froggy memory, and again, memories of driving through the fog, even going to the beach during June. And June was a season that is affectionately known as, amongst Southern Californians, as the June gloom, because it's foggy and cloudy until maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then the sun finally comes out. But that was when we finally got out of school in mid-June, and we'd drive down. Either I would drive my truck down, or somebody else drove, and we'd drive down to the beach in the fog and the cloudiness, and then in the cold until the sun came out. But anyway, that's Southern California weather, and I think they still call it June gloom to this day. But my other memories, we used to do, and maybe I mentioned this in the first one, but my brother and I were always active. We were either playing in the backyard, building something, or we were in the street, and the front yard. But in the street, we would play. We play all day. We play 3 flies up, 500, a bat and a ball, and guys with gloves. We would play home run derby with a wiffle ball, using the garage door as the backstop, and then we would pitch from the sidewalk. And a home run was any ball that went over the curb on the other side of the street. That was a home run. So we had this whole, we made up our own rules. Nobody supervised us. Nobody, gave us rules. We just kind of made up things as we went along, which, in my mind, is grossly missing these days. It really fosters a level of creativity and conflict resolution, because nobody refereed. There was no adult involvement. In fact, somebody reminded me when I was coaching the boys, I think Chase was like 11 and Chris was 7 or 8. And one of the other coaches reminded me, he said, Dave, this is what's changed radically in between the time that you and I grew up and the time that these kids are growing up. He said, the reality is these kids don't do anything without adult supervision. Nothing without adult supervision. And I said, yeah, wow. I said, the only thing that was adult supervised that we participated in was Little League. And that was, adults. And these were serious adults. We were coached by serious adults who, some of them actually played professional baseball. Some of them played a very high level of high school baseball. Nearly all of them were either World War II or Korean War veterans. And these guys were serious, but they knew how to train up young men and play by the rules and play hard and not give up and all of those things. And those are attributes that are very hard to find now. I remember when they cut the Shamel ash, the Fraxinus udii, which were the street trees, and these trees had trunks probably 2 to 2.5 feet in diameter that lined our street and the streets around us. And they started heaving the curbs and the sidewalks, which made for a very adventuresome skateboarding. That was the other thing we did in the front yard, was we would skateboard on the sidewalks. Well, if the sidewalk is tilted at an expansion joint, you have kind of a built-in jump. So you're skating along, and all of a sudden you jump off, the elevated part of the walk onto the flat, and then you hit another elevated, and you got to jump around it and move around it. And anyway, it was a great little obstacle course, the fact that the sidewalks were heaved up. So the city came out and said, well, we're going to have to cut all these trees down and put new sidewalks in. Well, they cut all the trees down, and again, these were huge ash trees. And in the course of cutting them down, there was an accumulation of sawdust at the base of each tree. So we had the bright idea, it was the fall of the year, and we had the bright idea to take grocery bags. Every kid on the block went home and grabbed a couple of grocery bags, from wherever their parents stored them, and brought them out, and we proceeded to gather up all the sawdust and fill the grocery bags. And then we had the brilliant idea that we would use the sawdust to line a complete football field the length of the street. So we put all the lines down, we put the little hash marks in, we did all of that. So we got it all set up. And a city truck with a guy driving the truck, obviously one of the tree removal supervisors, stops his truck and asks me, "What are you guys doing?" He says, "We're making a football field." He said, "You know what? It's not good." And we were very proud of the work that we had done. You know, we laid out this whole field. We stepped off the yard markers, the whole deal. So there were probably 4 or 5 of us that were party to this making of the football field, lining the football field with sawdust. So he goes to the back of his truck and he brings out a bunch of push brooms and hands each of us a push broom, and we proceeded to sweep by hand the entire length of the street of the sawdust, and gathered it up, and he took it away. So that was fun while it lasted. I remember we were playing, I don't know if we were playing Over the Line or 3 Flies Up or 500, I don't know what it was, but there was a family called the Hyatts, and they lived mid-block on Adams. Washington was to the east of us, Adams was to the west, North-South Street. And they lived about mid-block, and Mr. Hyatt had a camper. And I hit the ball, and I broke one of the windows in the camper. It was a pretty long hit. I hit the ball and broke the window in the camper. He heard it. He came out and he said, "Who's responsible for this?" And I pretended to be an amateur attorney, defense attorney, and I said, "Well, I may have struck the ball, but I had absolutely no control as to where the ball would go." He said, "I don't buy it. You're going to have to pay for a new window." So I was 12 at the time, and I was mowing, I think, probably 5 lawns, maybe 6, probably 5 lawns. 5 lawns with a push mower on Saturdays. So I made about $15, $16 on a given Saturday, which back then was a lot of money. The window cost $10, and so I ended up paying for the window, and obviously learned not to make foolish arguments about striking a ball and not knowing where the ball would end up. And everything was fine after that. I think that was the only window I ever broke with a baseball. I did, when my brother and I were playing catch in the backyard, I do remember an errant throw that struck a 5-gallon glass water bottle from Baston Cherry Water, which was a water service that a lot of people in the neighborhood used, and spring water, well water that the Baston Cherry family was selling. And my mom and dad would keep the bottle on the back porch, and I don't know, we were messing around, and I fired an errant throw with a hard ball in the backyard and shattered the glass water bottle. And there was a deposit of like $5 on the water bottle, so another $5 out of my pocket to pay for damage from a baseball. So I think those were the only two incidents in that regard. But all in all, I look back and kids, youngsters today, when I look at it, I can't believe how active we were. And if we weren't playing in the backyard, if we weren't playing, skateboarding on the sidewalk, or playing in the driveway, basketball, or three flies up, or home run derby. Oh, the coffee's here. Thank you. Is there milk in it?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Oh, and I love the cup. And what flavor bread do we have here today?
Banana chocolate chip.
Banana. Oh my goodness. Wow, fantastic.
You were talking about.
It wasn't until I was married to my wife Ann that I ever had banana bread in my life.
You were talking about breaking the 5-gallon
Water bottle?
water bottle, very similar to Chase and I breaking the 10-gallon aquarium.
Oh yeah.
The same thing.
Yeah. And Chase has the Weber that has the baseball-sized dent in the lid for the Weber as well. So those are great things. Kind of painful at the time, but kind of humorous to look back on them. That is very light cream, you're right. So all the stuff we did locally on the street, driveway. I think I may have mentioned that we had the only basketball goal in the neighborhood. So everybody came to our driveway to play. The older kids mostly, and so had a lot of competition playing against the older boys in the neighborhood. And then during the summer, all you had to do was go over to Nicholas Park, the junior high school, which had baseball fields. It's now called Gary Carter Field, in honor of Gary Carter, who had passed away a few years ago, who played on that field, along with everybody else that lived in West Fullerton. And all you had to do was show up on a given afternoon after lunch, and we'd just start playing something. We'd either play over the line, or we'd pitch to each other, and Gary Carter and Bill Robinson and myself and other guys would show up, and we'd play it until it was dinner time. I never had a water bottle with us. Never took a sip of water in the middle of summer, ever. And it was all about playing and being active. So that's today's memories.